top of the interview. Today I have Thor Platter. Thor Platter is playing virtual show CLE 8 p.m. Friday. Yeah, man, Thor's the real deal. We had a really good conversation, and I don't think I've really talked to anyone who's been so direct in what they're doing and how they're doing it, and has been so diligent with how thought out their approach is to doing what they do. If you hear anything you like, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review the podcasts on the podcast mediums such as Apple and Spotify, which we are now on for all my Apple listeners. We are on Spotify. We've been on Spotify for a minute. But if you can rate and review, it really helps us put our podcast where it needs to be so people can be heard and we can get these artists who are talking to amplify their voice even more. All right, Thor Platter. Appreciate y'all. All right.
Okay.
We're at the Zig At The Gig podcast. I'm hanging out with Thor Platter. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, pretty good. How about you, Dave?
Not bad. How's quarantine been?
It's been.
Yeah.
Just keeping a routine. I think I was more. I had a lot of similar stuff talking to my friends, but I think more going into it was worse. Which is always our anxieties, thinking about the what if. But it's been pretty solid, and just kind of keeping a routine together has been very helpful.
That's awesome. I kind of fell into the same approach as well. Like as soon as everything started, I was like, all right, I need to learn this. I need to do it, and just made a whole practice routine. And up until today I was like, oh, I'm tired. I gotta break.
Some days, I wanted to read about 5 books the first week, and I didn't even open a page, and a lot of my friends that are creating and writing, they found the same thing in that first week. I was like, all right, well, here I am. I can just write, and you just can't. It's tough to find that motivation. But I think a regular routine, and then some days I sleep in, and some nights I have more alcohol than I wanted to, but it's all okay.
Nice.
And I was talking with my buddy this morning, and I find myself, I'm still not drinking at home alone.
That's good.
So I'm anytime I'm drinking, I'm either watching a stream. I've been watching a lot of Questlove live.
Oh yeah, nice. He's got some cool streams.
Yeah, he just some great music, and so then I feel like, well, that's social, and I'm drinking socially, so that's still okay. Or if I FaceTime with somebody, that's it keeps you sane.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely, I agree. The streaming.
There's definitely no whiskey in this tea I have right here. It's a little too early. So.
I know. I've been sleeping in like crazy too. I
catch up on it.
Yeah. This probably won't, knock on wood, happen again to catch up on this much sleep. But yeah, the live streams are. It's weird how socially it makes you feel, like how actually socially it makes you feel like you're actually doing something social, even though you're in the same spot you probably were. But now there's a reaction from people on the screen. I've done a few Zoom mic nights, one of which was last night with Meg Stefka.
Oh yeah, love Meg. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's awesome, and she does her Manic Mondays on Zoom, and I tuned into it for the first time this week or yesterday, and I was like, this is crazy. It was so cool. I don't know. It's weird how just the perception of the other people reacting makes that social norm. Where it's you can feel like drinking, or you can feel like whatever you would do with them there.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even, some of the streams that I've done on my Facebook page, I did one of them, and then after that, I was like, well, I guess I probably won't do too many of ththose. And then I got so many messages and emails and texts from my friends and people just saying it was normal. It was they put it up on Facebook on an app on TV.
Yeah.
And then them and their spouse and their dog are sitting there watching an hour and having a glass of wine or whatever. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm stuck now. I'm going to have to,
It's cool.
So it's being helpful, and it's, I think that's, everybody needs that. And I would never, if I was just sitting at home playing, because now, so I'm playing virtually to people, I guess, but I'm playing to a little camera on my iPad. But if I was sitting at home playing, I wouldn't be drinking whiskey, on camera. So I'm having a good time too, and it's I'm definitely my chops are keeping up.
Nice. definitely a one thing to keep everything well oiled and ready to roll when everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody needs that. I'm really fortunate to have music in my life for that, and it's always gotten me through, good and bad times. And I feel like everybody hopefully has something that isn't that they can't approach right now. And when I take walks around the neighborhood, the first couple weeks when I was walking around my neighborhood in Cleveland, there's a lot of guys that are like building, like they have woodworking shops in their garages, and I was kind of jealous because I was like, I'm stuck inside, but then I thought about it and I was like, well, those guys are probably like, that's just their music. Like I'm sitting, I'm playing chords and writing songs or doing whatever, and they're building stuff. They probably feel the same way. So I'm very grateful for that, and I've always been grateful for music in my life.
Definitely, I think it's to have something to focus on that's not everything, not the not knowing of everything, or the confusion or the fear of everything not returning or where it's going to be. Having that one thing you can do, if it's build a shed or if it's build a tune, it mentally keeps that hope, that rose tinted view, and hopefully keeps the mind sharp.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do relate. Like, man, they're building a shed. Like, I got a song about building a shed now.
Right. Like, I wish I had a woodworking shop that I could do, I mean, I could do some of that stuff if I had the shop, but or like guys are rebuilding cars, and I have motorcycles, and I have an old car still up in Buffalo that I've been meaning to bring down, but I'm not going to have enough time as we work in this routine and all. I'm not a real big project person. I kind of, just plug along and do a little bit of everything,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel it. I mean, musically, you're a big project person. You got some stuff in the works. I was looking up.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I guess that's all a big project, but it's nice because it comes in the form of songs that that you can just push along and complete. And
like they're like segmented things, like
yeah, right. So then you don't it's like the process is making it, which is something that for the past few years I've tried to push myself about, not being like, oh, don't worry about it, the completion, just making it. And for me, I don't know this might be the last record that I release, and it might just be more Spotify and all that. But in this time now, like I'm just going to start releasing songs on Spotify this year, and putting them out there, and that's the process, and that works really well for me because I've had a couple songs now in the past couple months that I've written. And even though I feel like I should be more productive and more inspired right now in these weeks, I'm not. But I wrote something that wasn't really related to this whole thing. It's more of a love and a growing and maybe a little heartbreak song, which is where I'm usually at. But so yeah, I mean, I think it's there, and I need to be patient with myself at the rate that I'm inspired, and not force it.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I just try and write every day, whether it's thoughts or anything, even if it's crap, just write. And it's nice that I have an iPad and I can just sit there and type and think of whatever thoughts. And I've been journaling every day too, just documenting what I've done. And
is that part of your routine?
Yeah, pretty much. I tried to. I thought it would just be interesting to look back because I started journaling a little bit late into this. And so I summarized the first page. I just kind of summarized the first few weeks.
Yeah.
But I thought it'd be good to look back, years from now and just be like, well, what was keeping me going? Like, what was, because it's been going well. I mean, everything's been really good. And, but just writing down like how many eggs I had for breakfast the one day.
That's like
just
the most
like
Henry Rollins approach. I had 6 eggs, and then I went like. But there's definitely a thing to keeping that routine of just writing and being comfortable with having a thought, putting it down, and then maybe going back to it. There was that one sentence that stuck out of that thing, which inspires a song.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's where I miss my friends a lot too, because I looked back in my notes some songs that I've written that are be on the next record. And a lot of lines in there are stolen from my friends. Like they'll say something, we'll be at a bar or we'll be at an event, and they'll just say something, funny or whatever. And I'll just write it right in my phone notes. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, and they don't recognize it. You know,
Yeah.
I had to tell my one friend, I had to tell her that she said that line, you know, verbatim. And, you know, her and her husband are really good friends of mine. And she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, yeah, I guess I was saying that all that. It was just a saying, but it was,
What
you know,
was it? What was it?
She was saying, I guess she said that I said it first, but it was, it's when you refer to things, if you're explaining something and a person says, you know, it's like anything else. And then they don't finish it with something. They just say it's like anything else. Well, yeah, it's like everything. I don't know what you're saying. But what I was trying to do is say it's like anything else in music or in, you know what I mean? Like I was putting, but she wasn't letting me finish that line. So in the song, the line I made was, it's like anything else in love, you know? So it kind of, it made sense.
That's a good play on
we
it.
were making fun of it. Yeah, somebody would say that line and then not explain what they were talking about, you know?
That's one thing that's been kind of crossing my mind, because I've been, as part of my routine, I try to fit in an hour of not writing. It could be anything. It could be nothing. And part of that was inspired by talking to Emily Keener. But like, was taking part of what's been run through my mind is that the input output, like it's hard to put out if you can't take in. You know what I mean? Just like that, having a conversation with a friend, they say that I occasionally get that Dewey Cox moment. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Walk Hard, where shit's going down and he's like, walk hard. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
That hit home for me, and it sounds like it might hit home with you.
It's absolutely, that's, you know, that's the greatest thing about getting inspired for songs when it comes to in Neil Young's book, in his first book, he put about never like when the muse comes, you just have to go. And he, you know, he did it to an extreme, which people like Neil Young in the 70s could afford to do that, where if he felt inspired and he was supposed to go and do something, he would just not do that, and he would go to his, you know, his shed or the room that he wrote in or whatever, and he would just go do it. Now, sometimes you can't do that. You have to go to work. You have relationships. You have whatever. But you know,
I mean, if Neil Young did that today, sorry to cut you off, he would. There'd be, if any artist of any level of Neil Young, right, would do that today, it would blow up on the internet. They'd be like,
sure,
you know, it'd be a different reaction.
Right. Yeah, I've been really, you know, it's been really nice that in my life, my relationships and my friendships and everything have allowed me to do that, where I've, you know, I've been able to be late to things. I've been able to, you know, and a lot of times when you're playing, like you get inspired too, when you're performing, for me live, and coming back from playing out of town. Like everybody that I've played with, there's been some times where I've written in the back of the van and they might not know I'm doing it, but sometimes I'll just say that I'm tired and, hey, you know, Paul Kovac, can you drive back or whatever? And we'll be talking too, but I'm in my phone notes because there's something that sparked it. So I can totally see these people that are on tour buses and, you know, they take that time to write and not just to play video games or worry about the next show, which is probably what I would be doing. I don't know if I was on a tour bus on a 6-week tour, I don't think I'd be writing, but
yeah, definitely.
I hope I would.
I think that the first 2 weeks would be like, this is sick. Look at this.
Yeah, yeah. I need more Cheetos. Come on.
We're out of Pop-Tarts. Right. There's a guy driving us. Oh.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to worry about the 7-hour haul.
Right.
Because I definitely think at one point you'd probably hit that, we got to keep this going. I got to start getting ready for the next tour.
Absolutely. Once you're there, you want to stay there. You want to, I don't know. I've thrown some of that shit away too. Like success is so funny to talk about with some of my peers and some of my friends. And, you know, a lot of my friends in Nashville that are on paper much more successful than I am. I had, like, I won't mention any names, but there's a couple people that they've been, you know, they're on record labels like None Such or whatever. And when we kind of compared notes and talk about performances and money and all that, like, they're not making the money that some of us are making in cities like Cleveland as musicians and performers. They're getting a little bit more exposure and they're playing bigger rooms. But I don't know where, you know, when I look back, I don't know that is necessarily more successful. if you're selling out the Beach and Ballroom every time you come to Cleveland, like, yes, I could say that. But some of these people that come through and they're playing the Beachland Tavern, or they're playing smaller venues, and they're playing 30 dates, and then it all goes away, and they haven't built up what people like me and Brent Kirby and Ray Flanagan and people that have built this little scene, even though it's just in Cleveland.
Yeah.
It's almost like, well, that's pretty successful. And I don't feel that I'm successful, but when I look at somebody like Ray, who doesn't sacrifice, his art for anything, maybe to a fault, where he's very, on his, I was like, Ray, I'm like, you probably don't want to post this stuff about, whatever on Easter, or whatever, you're going to probably alienate some of your fans, and even, I don't care. Well, that's great. That's why people are digging him.
Yeah,
I
definitely
love the stuff he writes. But he's such a thoughtful, Ray Flanagan, such a thoughtful and methodical songwriter. Like, everything's in its place for a reason. And some of his anger doesn't really come through in the songs. He somehow puts a filter on it. Where in person he's just off. It's great.
Yeah. I had a talk with Ray a couple weeks ago, and you're right. He's got a lot of insight and a lot of things that.
Really smart dude.
Yeah, a way to describe certain things that maybe you wouldn't put those words to. But yeah, he's a cool dude, and he's got some cool points, and he posts some mad shit.
Yeah. Success awesome. Is always really strange for me to think about, and that's why it's kind of great now. The way, that's one good thing of everything turning from albums into Spotify and into little quick videos or whatever, is that you can create those things. Like on my Instagram story, I'm trying to do more originals, but I don't want to do the originals that I haven't recorded or released yet. For no other reason than I know that in the studio we're going to change the arrangements a little bit, and so I kind of want to be true to that. But just posting some covers on Instagram, the Instagram TV, it's like I prepare for it. I usually try and play it like once or twice. If it's a song that I haven't already played before, like I might play a few more times, and then I try and get a quick take, and I don't edit it and just post it, and it's like, well, then it's there and people can see it, and it's an intimate thing for everyone to be a part of,
Definitely.
And then I'm on to the next thing, so it's like, yeah, that's great, you can create that. And so when I started posting those last year, sometimes live, people would request. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't, like, I only played that song once.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I listen to it every day. I was like, whoa, I haven't played it in a year. I don't know what to, so.
Let me try.
I got to remember that sometimes. Yeah.
But that's cool. I think one thing, I think to kind of pull back, how you define success really matters on what it means to you. If it means to being able, like for me, it was always to be able to say, what do you do for a living? Music. It doesn't define the type of living, but it is what I do, right? And so any weird gig opportunity or anything, I've always been like, that sounds cool, let's do it. And I don't know, like it's different for everybody. It might be different for someone in Nashville who's playing, like you're saying, like, I don't know, like the Bluebird Cafe, and like can like play to a big crowd every night, but maybe not be able to live comfortably. And or maybe someone who rolls through town and rolls to the next, they're hitting every town and they're playing. That's hard enough to do, you know what I mean? To book a gig and like at least a tour's worth of gigs and have it happen, you know what I mean? But before you get called back, having the gig happen once it's a thing. It really, it makes or breaks your, I don't know, your ego to keep doing it and keep branching out, or at least the email chains. And like, so for you, is it more of a success in being able to sustain yourself with music, or is it, I don't know, what is it, or is it still being defined?
I would say, one thing that you said, like, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts during this time too.
Yeah.
And I forgot which one. The Working Songwriter is great. Joe Pug.
Yeah. I just listened to his episode with Ian MacKaye.
Oh yeah. Great. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't think it was on that one, but a couple other, but I heard a thing where it said, like, when somebody says, like, what do you do for a living? They're trying to give you the perception of what they want to be or whatever it is. Yeah. So like, he would always ask people, what are you working on? Like, it didn't matter what the person did, so especially if they're a musician or they're a gig-based person or they're bartending or whatever, because sometimes if you're a musician and you're a bartender, you could you could be passionate about both of those things as they're going, I think that my goals change, but I think that my measure of success is pretty validated right now with like the streams and the messages that I've gotten, just to feel good about what I've done. And then I would say a few years ago, 5 years ago, I probably would have said like, oh yeah, to be able to make a living, to be able to, buy a house, like to do whatever that I want to do. And then there's been a few times that one thing in particular that just hit me out of nowhere. I was playing a gig. This couple had come to see me for a while, for like a year or two. And they had come, maybe a couple times, I don't know, maybe 20%, 30% of the gigs, and they were there. And then I didn't see them. And I didn't realize I didn't see them, because you see people come and go and whatever, until about a year later. And this couple comes in, and I can see the guy's a little frail. And they listen to the set, and then I take a break, and she comes up, and she's already got tears in her eyes. And I don't know, I was having an average day. I wasn't up or down or anything. And I just play and take a set break, and I grab a beer, and she comes up and says this story about how her husband, was fighting an illness, and he was in intensive care, and every night they would listen to my record. It was part of their routine. Whoa. So they knew every one of those songs from my record, Take Time, the last thing I put out. Yeah. They knew every one of those songs in and out, and every single one of them had this wonderful meaning to them, and like he told me, it got him through the entire thing. So in my head, I'm like, that didn't get you through. Like, you're just okay, because I'm just, no, there's no way, And then I didn't think that it would impact me as much. Like, it doesn't make me right for that, but I've had those moments with music too. So if that one person, that couple, that made it for me, and now it's like, since then I've recognized a bunch of things, or people have sent me messages, or in person, they've said like certain songs, what they take from them, and they really like that or whatever. And that's the best payment ever. And I never, 5 years ago, would have never thought that. I never would have thought the way that like somebody like John Prine or Townes Van Zandt, those songs stick in my heart. I never would have thought that would be the best payoff ever,
Yeah. Wow, man. That's a beautiful.
Not from a greedy ego place. Like, I don't care. I don't want anyone to ever say like, oh, he was a great songwriter. He was. That's not what I was going for. But the fact that I am successfully able to use music to touch people the way that I was touched with music when I was in my teens, and still continue to be. Boom. There it is.
Beautiful. Beautiful, my friend. Well said. Well said. Yeah, that's wow. I gotta take that in for a second. That's beautiful that they came and that music meant so much, and it's amazing what music means. And like, as a musician, like you're saying, you grow up with that feeling that there's whatever it is changed your world and made you want to figure out this thing with metal and wood and how to make sounds with it. And
absolutely.
Seeing that you can do the same, that's a beautiful measure of success.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You're doing, my friend. Wow. Yeah. What brought you to? Because we've kind of run because I'm from Cleveland. I play in a band called Sea Level, letter C dash, right. And I've seen just through the interwebs, Thor. You keep running. Like, I keep running into you, and like I'm like, this guy plays banjo. No, this guy plays guitar. He does it all. And then like, but you're not from Cleveland. You're from Buffalo, right?
I'm from Buffalo, New York. Yeah.
And then I think you moved to Cleveland like maybe, I don't know.
It's like 11
years?
Maybe I can't count. 2008?
2008?
12 years ago?
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. So I've run into you a lot, but I've like, I don't think we ever got a chance to meet in person. So this has been really cool. Like, do these conversations and like hear these stories and like, but kind of taking it back, what brought you to Cleveland from New York?
I had a job that I was moving around with, and I thought that I would be able to move here. And then they had some sites that I could have worked at down in Kentucky, and my plan was to work in Kentucky, live in Clarksdale. I don't know, whatever it is.
Mississippi?
And then no, that's so Clarksville. What's the song? What's the monkey song? That's in Tennessee. Take the last train to Clarksville.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my plan was to live there, work in Kentucky. That would be about an hour away or half an hour away, and then drive a half an hour into Nashville every single night, and just be, and then that would be my dream of living in Nashville. After I was here for a few years, I fell in love with everything about Cleveland and about Northeast Ohio, and then I didn't really have the music opportunities in Buffalo. I had some friends that played, but Buffalo was not a town that you could legitimately be a songwriter or play. There was like 2 open mics there. It was just not happening. And when I go back, like it's grown, but it's not. I came to Cleveland, I think, at a perfect time where the beer scene was growing. It kind of all came to that head with the NBA championship. But this whole city was just growing like crazy, and I fell in love with it. And people would make fun of me when we first moved. The first couple of years that I was here, like people from Buffalo they were like, why would you move to Cleveland? What's going on? And then within 5 years, they were visiting me every other weekend, and
nice.
They knew how great it was. So I just decided, as those opportunities were coming up, I was like, no, I'm going to stay here. And then meeting Paul Kovac and about 6 years ago or so, and then him and I played a lot and toured a lot, and I just kind of built these circles up of places that I could go and play and make a living at it, and just give a good product. And I always, every time I would find somebody that like Paul that was available, and Paul Kovac's one of the greatest musicians that I've ever met, and his so much history and knowledge that he gives me, even though he doesn't think he is, but and then getting a really good bass player and creating a trio, or whether it's a band or whatever. And I think that everybody that I play with, I'm always the worst player in the group, but I think every culmination of a band that I've put together has been like a Nashville level band, and then it's just me in front, like I'm reaping the benefits. But so I think I took a lot from Nashville, and I spent a lot of time down there, and meeting a lot of people and seeing how they ran groups on the road and how they managed their music business. So that helped a lot too. And it's been pretty nice, and still, like, even going through this whole thing right now, this pandemic in Cleveland, it's where else would you want to be? Like, everyone's so great here,
For sure. I want to put a pin in that, but like going back, so how'd you meet Paul? What that brought that about?
He was playing with one of my buddies in Lakewood, and I had just I grew up listening to some bluegrass where my dad was into, but I didn't really play it. And when I moved to Cleveland, I started playing it a little bit more, and then I got myself to a point where I thought I was halfway decent. And Paul was playing in Lakewood at a bar, and I just showed up with my guitar. I knew the guy that was playing with him, and I showed up with my guitar, and I learned like 3-4 songs that I knew he would know. Nice. And I'd seen him play with Hillbilly Idol, but I'd never seen him in a bluegrass thing and have him play banjo. And I just played as hard as I could. And at the end of it, he was like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, what? And then I was like, "Hey, I got these gigs. You want to play these gigs?" Like, and he was like, "Yeah." And then after about a year, he was like, "You're paying me money. Like, what am I'm in?" But then we became friends too. So, that's kind of, I was always able to kind of hustle my way into gigs, in whether it was festivals, like local, beer week things or whatever, and then put a good product out. And bluegrass helped, even though I don't really ever play bluegrass, but as far as people that aren't into music, you got a banjo and a upright and a guitar, it's bluegrass to them. Yeah. Even though it's not. I mean, like definitions are not something that anybody in music should really, just play music,
Yeah.
But it worked as a talking point or a selling point for some of those things. Be like, "Oh, we have a bluegrass group. Oh, great. Pay me, thanks."
Yeah, for sure. It's weird how that instrumentation, just like the show, the image of that puts that. And like you used the old mic and stuff too in some of your videos. So like I can see how someone would be like, "Okay, that's a bluegrass band." But like
right.
Like it's weird. But you can see like that same, maybe add a mandolin, maybe take away a mandolin, and you could put like Chris Seeley in it, and you could put the Punch Brothers, and you're like, well, is that bluegrass? bluegrass? You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
instrumentation doesn't necessarily define or the image doesn't necessarily define the type of music, even though in a weird, which this kind of I think ties back to another question I want to ask, in a weird like way, it's almost how you can categorize and package a thing. You know what I mean? Even though
Yes.
you're not
Absolutely.
bluegrass, but a big part of being able to hustle your way into things, which every musician or every creative or any business endeavor, anyone who really wants to put their vision forth has to find a way to do, and like in a way that's hopefully humane and you know what I mean, not like
Yeah.
rude, but like there is a thing to boiling down a thing to some key points, what people see and what people think they're going to hear, and how that is pushed out, which is that kind of going back. You said this last record or this next record is going to maybe be your last, and I'm guessing you mean like physical, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
think, I love vinyl, and I'll put the next one out on vinyl and do the full thing.
yeah,
But I think I'd be much more likely to do, just release everything, and at the end of it, throw it together and maybe put an album just so some people could have it. But
yeah,
I think in the form of working this time when I was in the studio with David Mayfield and we tracked 11, 12 tunes, they all kind of fit together and they make sense of the past couple of years of my life. So that's good. But then some of the stuff that I've written since then that I'll release as a single, like separately, are not really related, So like it's just going to be a release, and I'm looking forward to that. Having artwork and having a little bit of a promotion for each of those, and it would be different and invoke what the song's about, and maybe have a little story behind the song, and do some sort of digital release party now. Because I'm thinking this next one, this song that I want to put out, I'd like to put it out in the next few weeks. So it'd be cool to have like a release party of some sort where people maybe could ask questions and.
oh, that'd be sweet. A quarantine Q&A, like yeah, that's really cool.
I know Zoom's what everybody's using now, but I wish like there was a way that Facebook would let you have a guest, because that would be great. Like a Facebook Live. I guess they did it a little bit last year, but the way that Instagram is, where you can you can add somebody on there. If they did it on Facebook, where you could just choose one person to join, and like if you wanted to ask a couple questions during the Facebook live stream, like that would just be great. So I hope that something like that pops up.
That would be cool. Yeah, Facebook's kind of limited in that source, and so is Zoom. Like Zoom sound wise, you can't really get a good you can, but it compresses a lot. It's a weird.
Yes.
But anyway, like everyone's kind of learning this digital platform, and there's hopefully someone there making a way to make this the maximum it can be, and they're going to release it. Yeah. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the musician stream app, and everyone's going to go crazy for it, which would be
sure.
sick. But I think that's important to kind of navigate through the changes, and it's weird how how almost not saying what you're doing is like a prepackaged thing, but how Spotify and digital music and digital sharing of music redefined how it's taken in, how it's heard, how it's distributed, how it's successfully put out there, and
yes.
So that's one to be in the seas of change is a good spot for sure, and I guess now is the time to do it, but wow, man. So okay, so you made the move here, and David Mayfield, he's an Akron cat, right? You've been doing
yes.
I feel a lot with him, right?
He was in Nashville for 10 years, and then he moved back, and I met him through Paul Kovac.
Okay.
And then he, I asked him if he wanted to make a record, and when I released Take Time, I had tracked an entire record, and I just wasn't happy with the way that it sounded, because the guy that I used, who's a friend of mine, and he's great at what he does. It's just sometimes you bring a set of songs, and I needed a little bit of a nudge and some directions, and he wasn't providing that, and it wasn't a fault of his. It was just that I couldn't hear it, So I had all this stuff tracked, full band, everything, and I brought it to David, and I asked him originally, can you mix this? Can we redo the vocals, and can you produce it or mix it or whatever. And he was like, I really can't produce it because you already did it.
Yeah.
And so we went in, and in the first session, it was Paul Lewis and Paul Kovac and I, and we recorded a song that wasn't tracked in that other thing. And then I said, okay, well, let's do these 3 this way as a trio, and then the rest of it will be the band, and then you mix this, whatever. And by the time we got to the second song, he just turned around and was like, do you want to just do everything like that? You want to just redo everything? And I was like, yeah, I already spent thousands of dollars on the other stuff. Sure, let's do that. And it ended up being great. I mean, I love that record. And then, that other one I just threw out. I mean, I paid people to be on it. I paid the engineer, everything. And sometimes that's what you got to do. So then David's always been, really good to me and a really good friend anyway. And now this next record, he's, there's a couple of songs that he's nudged enough that there's a co-writing on it, which is great because he's given me some great lines and reworked some ideas that I had. And so I'm looking forward to that. And he's definitely set into a nice space down there in Canton, Tiger Spa.
Gotcha.
And Sweet Side Recording is what it is, but Tiger Spa is his record label kind of thing. So, it's been great to know him, and then also all the people that he knows in Nashville. So we've been able to kind of get some people to play on it. Oh, and now is a great time because nobody's making any money, and they'll do it for a regular wage. So,
yeah. Who have you got?
I'm excited.
Can you say?
Excited for that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's that?
Oh,
sorry, no, it's good. I said, who have you got on it so far? Can you say?
I can't say yet. So
okay. That's cool though.
He was like, what's the big, who do you really want to get? And I gave him a really high artist. Yeah. And then he told me that he had recorded that person.
Nice.
For something, and he had the contact, and I was like, "Well, shit, here we go." So all he can say is no. Yeah. And, but yeah, so there's it should be pretty good. But I'm not filling it with just a bunch of names. It was just something I was like, oh, that'd be pretty cool to have that person on it.
Definitely. Especially if it's someone that's inspired you along the way, to get them to be, even to get the responsive no, it's a little exciting. You're like, oh, subject line. Oh,
yeah. They listened to it at least, or whatever you think they did.
I broke the wall, made it through. Oh, that's cool. It's weird, like how important. I don't want to say it's weird. I guess it's crucial how important the producer is to the record. Like it's a vague term. I think people don't understand as much because
I work really well with that. And I didn't before with other people that would produce. Yeah. And again, it's not like those other people didn't know what they were doing. It's just sometimes, and there's been times that David has ended projects because he thinks the person's being unreasonable. Yeah. And it might be that, and it might just be that they don't gel together, and
True.
David and I play music together. We sing together. We talk. We went to Nashville together. Like we've done that. So it's like when he says something like, oh, I don't really like this song, let's not even do it, I don't get offended by it, And,
yeah.
I wrote something that I sent him that I tracked here, and it'll be the next song that I'm going to release on Spotify. And I sent it to him, and then he mixed it. We got some dobro on it. We got everything that I wanted. Just really, it's stripped down. And then he was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, man, that sounds great. Like, what do you think?" And he texted me back and said, "I think it's one of the greatest songs you've ever written." And I was like, "What? No, what? Like what? But he's not bullshitting me. Like he's he's being sincere, and so I work really well with him, and it's also opened up that when I work with other people, it's allowed me to be a little bit more open, and take that criticism and take things and know that for the most part everybody has my best interest in their mind when they're trying to do that. Other musicians with me or bandmates or whatever.
Definitely. Well, you put yourself in that kind of vulnerable spot by sharing. Absolutely. Here's this thing I spent hours crafting that means something to me, and now I'm trying to make it a official thing, and you don't like it, or what I mean. Even like when someone's like, "Yeah, that one line," there's a mental spot you got to shift in, being like, okay, physically or musically, it's got to be chopped up to fit in that phrase, and like. There's things you don't think about because you're thinking of the expression, and someone's looking at it as an overall expression, and like finding that magic team supreme to make it work is important.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting, man. So you said that's
Yeah.
coming out in a week, maybe?
And then in the next few weeks, I'll probably post about it and set it for like a month from then or something. But I think, yeah, definitely having like a release party the day of it on Facebook Live would be great. You know?
Yeah, that would
And
be
as
awesome.
we're going along here, I mean, I've got the opportunity to be at some places outside, and I think that if we, however this next month or two develops, you know, there may be an opportunity to do an outdoor show that people could distantly come to, you know, and that would be nice too. And you know, I wouldn't charge for it, or I just would make it be maybe you email and get a ticket if only 10 people can show up or something. But and then stream it as well, you know. But so yeah, those opportunities we're gonna have to just figure out how that's all gonna play out over the next little while, you know.
And then just like what you're doing right now, you got to get creative with it. And I think more people are going to find innovative ways to share what they're doing and like connect people. And that's a good idea to do find someone's got a big yard. Okay, there's X's every 6 feet. Bring a blanket.
And then safe. My thing is always like, because I got a yard here, but it's always like safe access to a restroom.
Yeah.
So I can't do that here at my house. Like I have a first floor restroom, but if I have 5-6 people over like that, you know, the people are touching everything or whatever, you know. So the place that I can use has like open door access to restrooms that are public, you know, that are I mean, in a setting like that, and we can sanitize them, we can do it. So it's like, because people are going to start going to grocery stores or to businesses and things like that, and that will always that'll be the same, you know, where you're using common bathrooms and just using the safe techniques that we have to keep everybody safe. So, you know, I definitely won't do anything that would be deemed illegal or against anybody's orders. But I think that there's very safe ways to do all this stuff, you know.
Definitely. And I think the fact that you're thinking there is a positive light. And more people got to be thinking in that direction, too, how to deal with the changes as opposed to be like, can't wait for it to go back because it's going to be small steps, you know.
It's small, yeah. It's going to be a while, and everything will change, you know, for a long time, for sure. But it'll be okay, you know.
For sure. And it'll get back eventually to some point of normalcy.
Yeah.
What is it? Well, that's cool, man. Have you tuned in to any of the virtual shows yet? Have you checked those out?
I have not. Yeah, I haven't.
No?
I've seen some stuff pop up about them, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
It's sick. It definitely kind of highlights, you mentioned how special kind of Cleveland and the Northeast Ohio music scene is. I think the fact that organization exists and what Gau's doing to make sure it's musicians who's lost a significant amount of gigs. And, you know what I mean? I think, if anything, that highlights how much the scene cares for its members and the people involved. And like, and I played the second one, and it's a really, really cool experience. It's weird because, like how we were saying, like earlier, there's this like mental thing that connects you socially, even though you're in the same spot. Now there's just hypothetically more eyes looking, more mics hearing.
Yeah.
But it's a real magic spot. So you're like,
I'm really looking forward to it. And I don't know JP that's playing, but I know Claudia. She's Becky Boyd's daughter, and you know, I've known Becky Boyd for a number of years, and I've known her. So I'm really looking forward to that, and that kind of round format will be nice. You know? Yeah,
it'll be really cool. It's a really Becky Boyd's son. She's a monster too. She kills.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
Well, a side question: when you do Nashville hustles, how often are you doing that? Because it sounds like you're kind of bouncing a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was going down there several times a year. There was when I was down there for an Americana Fest, one of my friends, I was playing and he came up and he was a booker for a couple venues, and he was like, I love it. Like I want to book you here or whatever. And then he paid me money where my friends in Nashville were upset. Like that was how much money I was making. But it was a corporate sponsor, and it was so he had it. And he was like, listen, I'm going to do this, like whatever. So I booked through him a lot, and then he moved to a big hotel there, and the same deal. Like I went down, we took a trio, and it was a good amount of money, and it was a weird venue, but it got me down there and playing. And for me, like I'm not I'm not looking to play the Basement East or the basement and the all the venues down there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking to break it in Nashville. My thing is if I can go to Nashville and see my friends and then see some great musicians and then also pay for the trip, boom,
Yeah.
Then I did it. So that was, that's been good. And then I just booked stuff on my own hustle along the way in Louisville and Columbus and some of those cities too. But mostly in the past couple of years, it's been around Ohio, back to Western New York. Did a New York City and a Florida run just, through Florida last January. It was pretty great. Like we went from Tampa down to the Keys and, those people are really nice and they give you a little bit of money. The tips are really, really good. And then every one of the venues, because they're pretty much, they're venues, but they're not like a Beachland. Like they're restaurant bars, but they do have stages and built-in sound and all the places. And I played 11 and almost every one of them ended up giving us more money. Like,
That's awesome.
Because I think they just get inundated with so much talent. And then when you get down there, you're like, oh, you can actually do a show. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, they probably feel guilty about what they were going to pay you,
Yeah. Yeah, a venue has got to get just destroyed with emails.
Oh. Yeah.
And to navigate that and to be like, keep it in a business mind, and like, that's got to be a really hard thing. A side question, my Sea Level's done. We've done some Weekend Warrior dashes, and we would do one every month essentially. And I would do some solo gigs. So what I would do is I would try to go by myself, navigate the scene, come back, bring the band, type deal. And like through doing all this, we've met not to downplay our sound people in Cleveland, but every sound person we played with in any other state was like, "Can I get you a water?" Like they're just like the nicest people in the world.
Yeah.
I want to know, have you noticed that trend?
Well, here's a fun thing about being on the road with Paul Kovac. Paul, in the 80s, I mean, the last time he had a straight job, I'm going to misquote, it was like 1982 or 84 was the last time he lived in California for a little while and worked in the movie business out there. And then when he moved back, that was it. He played music. So those guys were hustling and on the road and doing all that stuff, early 90s, Hillbilly Idol, and, he's played everywhere. So when we roll into a place, I usually do the advance. I usually make the contact and all that. But I will use him as, because I saw it a few times when we would go into a place, and if the sound guy be having a bad day or whatever, Paul would not have it. I mean, he would just read this guy, not the riot act, but like he would just say, I don't know what's going on with you, but we're here to play music, and we're, he would just lay into. So then I would go and I would be like, I would try and like massage it, and then I just gave up, and I was like, all right, well, no, maybe that's the best thing, just have him go in there. But 100% of the time, Paul would make that person's life better. Like he would pump them up. He wasn't there to just argue with them. So yeah, I see that for sure all over. And
that's awesome. You got your own.
There's nothing I hate more than when you show up and they were hoping that you would cancel. Like you get that feeling of it. So I don't know. Like I'll usually always try and meet the staff and try and just kind of do that. And it's tough sometimes, because people are they deal with a lot of stuff and. But for the most part, I've had really good experiences with sound guys, and I've learned a lot. My buddy Rich Mazurek owns Vertical Sound here in Cleveland, and just hanging out with him and being on some projects with him, I've learned so much about what I need in monitor mixes and what I want front of house stuff to sound like. So it's enough that I can navigate an X32 board and not do it in a way that sound guy, though every sound guy should know their board, but if I don't know what the board is, I can at least save things to them that they can give me, as opposed to, it was always troubling for me because I'd get somewhere and a monitor mix would be so bad, and you don't want to just say to the sound guy, like, have you ever stood up here? Like, have you ever,
Yeah.
So now I can manage that a little bit better, and if they don't have a remote rig, like, I just in a nice way, like, hey, well, come up here and try this. Maybe I'm not maybe there's something wrong with me. I know there's nothing wrong with me. Like what it is, I'm, and we've had some weird stuff where like there's been effects on vocals in the monitors, and they're like, no, there's nothing in there. And one time in particular, I went on one of the Behringer boards, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I just? And of course, I like went to these other pages, and they had an effect.
Okay.
And it was like, I should have said like, not that I should have yelled at that, but I was like, oh, but I was like, oh, I'm like, am I wrong? I was like, is that on a different scene? Or like, I knew I was right. It was the same thing, And he was like, no, that's, what? Why is that in there? And then it was gone. It was like, it would have taken us an hour to figure it out, or we would just had it was like it was a reverse gate that had been put on there.
Weird.
So you can't sing with that. I would have just said, no, don't give me any monitors. Like, but yeah, so sound guys can be, there's a lot of great sound guys, but sometimes they're not sound guys. They're like, they're the busboy that was just like, well, you hear stuff, right? Okay, go in front of this board.
Can you turn the knobs? You can level it.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing, right? And in some places, maybe that is all they're doing. But I kind of love that method because you make it more of a team build. Because as playing in a bar, a restaurant type deal, or even a venue to some degree, it's all a team effort. You're working with everyone there. You're working with Dana, the waiter. You're working with Mark, the bartender, and you're all a team. And the more you guys can connect what you're doing on stage to what they're doing on their stage, it can be.
We're just trying to keep them there for one more beer, or whatever the thing is. I know how I'm getting paid. I know what that is. I went into one place and the guy had it wasn't. I mean, he was the soundman, but didn't have any training or whatever. And it was a pretty good venue, and it was a pretty good like barbecue joint, and with good speakers and a good system put in a Behringer like X32 rack or something like that. And the gain structure was unbelievable. I've never seen like he had all of the individual channels up in like I think normally it's like. I don't know, 31 or something like that is where you put your gain on, or if you're like just on a regular board, you might put it right in the middle, like that gain on all the way at the top. This thing was 3/4 of the way up on every channel.
Wow.
And then every individual channel was pushed, the faders were pushed beyond 0, beyond infinity, like up 10.
Whoa.
So everything was blasted all the way up into the power amp that was then feeding the speakers, that was turned almost all the way down because the gain structure was so overloaded on the inputs. Yeah. So I reset it all, and I did a sound check before the sound guy was late, and I asked permission of the owner, and he was like, "Oh yeah," because I had the same rig. I set it all up. I got it. It was a band thing. We were doing kind of like a honky tonk band. I got it all set up. The guy comes in, freaks out that it's all been messed up, and I was like, "Well, I saved all your settings." I was like, "But I want you to know that like." This is what we're doing in your, he's like, I got to ride the faders all the time. I was like, don't touch the faders, please don't. Yeah. So we end up playing, we get about 3-4 songs in, and he comes up, I ran the monitors out, I did everything. And he comes up and he's like, do you guys need anything? And I was like, no, I'm like, everything sounds great. What's it sound like out there? He's like, it's unbelievable. I've never had the system sound so good. He didn't even touch anything.
Nice.
A couple songs go by, and I'm like feeling good. I'm like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
A couple songs go by, and in the middle of one song, howling feedback.
Whoa.
And I look over, and his fingers are in the iPad.
Oh, no.
So we end the song, and my buddy that was playing with me, like, he saw me. I end the song, and I was like, hey, folks, just give us 1 second. It was like a private event. And and I'm taking my guitar off, and my buddy comes over, he puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, Thor, I just want to tell you, I don't think I've seen a level of rage. So I don't, and I looked at him, and I was like, thank you. And I took a breath because I was ready. I was ready to just go over and break the iPad. And like everything was perfect. I was in the zone.
Yeah.
And I went over and I was like, hey man, I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, this looked weird. So I brought it down a little bit, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing. I said, let's just leave it. Like, I don't need any effects. I don't need anything. Like, just please leave the thing on the table. And if something goes wrong, just turn the mains down a little bit or something. I don't know what to tell,
Yeah.
And the rest of the night was fine, but and then afterwards, like because at first he wasn't too happy about me redoing that. And then of course at the end of the gig, he's asking me all these questions, and I was like, well, hey, like call my buddy or email my buddy Rich, because he'll talk about it all day with you. I can't really, you know, but I'll tell you what I know. And he was really appreciative after it. And,
That's awesome.
And like sent me an email later too. But, you know, you don't always have that. People get real defensive of their rigs, you know.
And it's weird because maybe it's like as a sound guy, because I do sound at this place called Negative Space, and I'm just a fill-in guy. There was a guy who was really running it there, and he was one of the fader riders. He would, if you backed off the mic, he would turn up the mic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it's hard as a performer to be like, I'm trying to be. I know it's not perfectly level, but I'm trying to do a thing. But for the most part, he got it to sound real good, and I'm I'm like trying to learn. But like, I think a big part of that is feeling like they're contributing and not being, you know what I mean? Like, how do you take that position, feel like you're giving to it without not doing a lot, you know? And
right, absolutely.
So that's an amazing story because it's a turnaround, and the guy appreciated it, and he came back and he was learning how to do it. And
well, it had to make his life way easier.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, set everything up and then go get a drink and just sit there and, you know, some of the my friend Tom at the Music Box, he's the sound manager or something like that. I forgot what the title is. But if you see him run, he works so hard. And then if I go see something in there, all I see him do, if he's got a good act, if he's got a good national act that he's running sound for, because a lot of times they'll bring their own, but he gets everything set perfectly. I've seen him run a sound check, amazing. And then all he's doing is tapping on the board to set the reverb.
Gotcha.
To set the reverb time with different songs or whatever. That's really all he's doing. And then he sit there the whole time, and then he's muting the reverb when the artist is talking in between the songs about the story, about the song or whatever, and then unmuting it. And that's all. And he sits back, but he's very intently watching and listening. That's the best sound guys that, you know, because if you have a good artist that can perform, like I just saw Hayes Carl, he had his own sound guy, but the guy was doing the exact same thing. He's just sitting, he knows what Hayes Carl is going to sing. Hayes has total comfort that the guy's going to make him sound good, and then he's natural in his state, and they're not adjusting anything. And he's doing those things. He's pulling off the mic. He's playing a little harder, playing a little lighter, and it creates that dynamic. And the sound guy's not just sitting there vaping. He's intently doing it. But he's you know, I always think he's such a big part of that. Anytime you see that, any of those sound guys, so they should, you know, take comfort in that, I guess. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's kind of like with music, the minimum amount of movement when you're playing something, you want the maximum amount of music, right?
Yes.
Like if you can switch from a chord shape from one, I don't know, with the least amount of movement, and like same with, I guess, the sound guy or with anything in any creative endeavor, the less you can do to get the more result, the better the result, I guess.
Yes.
And like that's awesome. There was a group I wanted to ask you about, like.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the interview was the Fat Cats, or Fatbacks.
Oh.
And was that the group you were playing with when you first kind of came to Cleveland? In that initial...
No, that's a Buffalo band that I was in. That was kind of like a rock and soul band. Okay. And it was a lot of fun. We would just play some of the bars and like juke joints around Buffalo and Lockport, New York, and into Rochester and stuff. But yeah, I was just playing guitar, and I would sing a couple Neil Young covers, and then I wrote some stuff that my buddy Eric that was in that band sang. So I wrote some of the songs too. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, we were all in our early 20s, and I think we released a CD on our own, you know, with 5 songs or something like that. But,
that's cool. And did you ever play Nietzsche's? That place is. I've been wanting to put something together there, but I don't know if I do. Like, I just like the idea of Nietzsche and it being a venue. And like,
they're so saturated with music there too.
Yeah,
it's really, you can have a real bad night there because no one will show up because they have no built-in crowd unless you have a following. People will go there. You know.
God, it's just a place where something's always happening.
Yeah, and it usually is packed, but if you're, you know, like me, like for my stuff, I do way better at a place like the Sportsman's Tavern up there, because Nietzsche's, there's not a lot of parking, and my crowd is not the Uber drivers or riders, you know.
Yeah.
So I need a little bit access to parking, or something like that to kind of get the older folks out, you know.
Well, knowing that's important. Knowing your audience as a writer or a musician, and you can address those factors. I think that's incredible. That
Yes.
shows the amount of work that you've put into what you're doing. Have you ever played? There's another place called the Art House that looked kind of cool.
In Buffalo?
Yeah.
It might have not been around when I
Okay.
was there. I don't recognize the name.
Because it looked like a negative space type venue.
Oh, is it like Panza or Pont or something like that?
I can't
think
remember.
I've seen it. It's right down in Allentown too. Yeah, I think I've seen. I haven't played it at all, but I've seen some of my friends have played shows there. Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely like an art space thing. Yeah.
And like the bills they had looked like the bills you would see at Brothers Lounge, but the venue looked like an art house, which was cool.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. Cool, man. Well, hey, dude, I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
This was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
I think we appropriately addressed how important sound people are. And
Yes.
if anything comes from this podcast is that we love them and we want the best for them.
Yes.
But Thor Platter, you're playing 8 p.m. Friday, virtual shows CLE, and I appreciate your time, man. This was a good talk.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.